sorry, that Kasa, she did that. Then Juki, Lutin de, and then Dunchawares, she's not Dunchawa in Bigi, Dunchawa City, and on Zuki, Lutin de Dawaki, and Joachus and Lutin de, indeed, Delia, and Jingan Zuki, Jawachima, and Tarami Koban to Bigi, Chidu, Yamlan Javanada, Tarbata, Tamjaki Koban to Lamnim Kare, Chevine, Dindile, two warriors, Chesa. Sedigi digi zamayin ba jewa chima da tarbata tamji kimbe goma drubeki lam nyamne garechina dendele tu ore chesan dendi nyuba tene shwele bares chindele asang ngue di gorma de churwa dendi le chama ba dire sete ngore twen chaw yin ba de.
Good morning. Then last night we started to look at the second outline in this chapter, contemplating their great value. They're referring to this precious human rebirth that is marked by these 18 freedoms and endowments. And their great value or purpose is that we can achieve independence on having these freedoms and endowments. We can achieve liberation and enlightenment. This is the remarkable potential of this rebirth we've all achieved.
Kowe dongal dreje ya tamje kimbe sala ko de zo ko bala ane ji phando tu ya la sanjo ko bon thogo de thogo do de za simje namji do sanjo ko bon thobo sho simbe ki jenju simbe ku ne langje lam nyam ne je rimba de ane tsam sanjo ko bon thobe lam nyam ne rimba de da ngan zo ki mi lu den de le kya ma do ane ji ya ji ngan kasa da garso re la da lu da ane ji Lama yinda, namga dinda, rizzinda, miemje, doche chimbola soba, desukule duskini, nyamlechi ya kuwapuyo mares. Rasan, chisa dine zang anzu ludin dele di nyamlechi ya kuwapuyo dele, tunye ca dele, tenze lugin disule ya, tunye ca yo mares. Chisa, unduskine, rasan anzu di, da yundenle masona, kechule masona, dunchewa yinbe, yumzen roji, unduskine, jirwa.
Further, we looked in a quotation from Chandragoman's letter to a friend that this rebirth we've achieved has the potential to cultivate the mind of bodhicitta through coming to understand our own suffering situation in samsara, that how we are bound in these suffering realms. We can then lift our gaze and recognize that all other mother beings are trapped in that same way, and thereby generate love and compassion for beings, developing love and compassion to its fullest extent, where we take responsibility for their welfare, and thereby generate bodhicitta itself, the determination to become a Buddha, so that we can be of greatest benefit to others, lead them to a state of enlightenment. So this is something that we can all achieve. It's something, though, that others, as we saw in the quotation, cannot be. Not by gods, nor by nagas, by asuras, garudas, knowledge holders, kinadas, and udagas. So all of these various types of beings cannot newly generate bodhicitta. But this is something that we, with our remarkable potential, can do in this very life.
Lamla Jambi, Bacha, Tubu, Tubu, and a duela, Kajik, Dangbur Timba Tongi, Dendo, Runyang, Kam Gombe, Dendang, Dela, Dangbur Papa, Palam Topa, Missijings, and Duela, Parchayang, Nengar Shepa, that Mukumbe, Nesu, Sungbe, Lam Dangburu to be Denla, Choto, Cho, Lam to be Dance, and Micho to Gua in Osa.
So immediately turning to the text in the handout, the ebook, at the very top of page 71, and in the published book at the very bottom of page 61. Some gods of the desire realm with strong predispositions for having previously trained in the path as a human are suitable as a support for seeing the truth for the first time. But it is impossible to attain that Arya path for the first time on the basis of birth in a realm above that. However, as explained above, the majority of desire realm gods lack the requisite freedom, so they cannot attain the path for the first time.
지산 디소에 하셔야 되다 하차상을 자기 말을 하 다진 마지름지 마 공부들 하차상을 말에다 미군비기 그 소리 지게 내리가 하디기리 마들 하고 차상을 말해서 그래 돈달리 지시게 거든 말 다데 장주심유 군의 랑제 장주심유 군의 랑제 산교고 람냠리 림바제 쇼로 디지 하라게 루레게 요말라로 지산 하라게 요말세 하디게 하차상을 레베스네 dine mares la ani mikhombe hadigel mado ani shilha chasan mares ani klakashile ge yores gorda.
In Lama Tsongkhapa's explanation here, in the very first sentence, is making reference to some gods of the desire realm, because here he's clarifying or presenting in more detail what Chandragoman mentioned in the quotation above, what is quoted from Chandragoman above, where there it says, this path is not found by gods. So it is not the case that there are no gods who cannot newly generate bodhicitta. So there are, the vast majority cannot. Those, the long-lived gods, they cannot. But there are some who can.
라가시길래 되비 라가시길래 겨와 요래 유비 김천대 디송하다 현야 원미 된라 람장비게 바차 투부 유비게 되비라 가직서 지산년마 미 된래야 람냠len제 안지게 초람나 절음라서 바디니게 곰지베 지 곰비게 다디니게 곰제 벤 지냠len 망보진 바차 투부 유되바제 안델마미 디는마시제 야 되비라야 겨와래 지사데 데니기 되벨해 때려야 람냠네 제데 디수이글라 같이 당부를 덴바 통화서 디글라나 안 동요 가서 통람 통와 요래서 덴바 통화서 통람시고래 다음에 봐 동바 용어선도 별로용어선 긴 통람도 봐 용거래서 덴바 통비 딘도 rum서 딘 요래서 덴바 통비 람냠네 제제 람톱차 냠렌제 바차 투부샤요레세 람톱차네라 냠렌 망고자세 또 바차 투부샤요레스 다디네 시네 되벨하레 겨와레 달하레 겨와연도 람냠마 냠레제 바차 예베세 디골라 디텔이야 람냠레제 제네 통람톱 투고레스 팔람톱 투고레제레 제잔 하세디 라차상을 말해디 글로브리셀 하세디 라체링보다 아니 미콘빅 되벨 하디길 시고레스 되벨 라차상을 미콘바다 최냠내제 상승진의 라저로 디스 미콘빈네를 하디길 시고 다디디 냠내 람냠내 제네 바도 미콘바 말고 콤바르와 가서 아주 이게 람냠내 제고 거비에 바르와다고.
So Lama Tsongkhapa, in the first sentence here, then explains how the situation is different for some desire realm gods. Some gods of the desire realm with strong predispositions, or the words usually translated as imprints or predispositions, from having previously trained in the path as a human. So in other words, in their previous life as a human, they had achieved the paths of accumulation and possibly preparation as well. So they would have achieved a path, either the path of preparation, the path of accumulation, the first path, or perhaps even the second path, that of preparation. So then they die, their life as a human being ends, and if they attain rebirth as a god in the desire realm, they would be, and the sentence continues, suitable as a support for seeing the truth for the first time. So in English, you wouldn't really say, it's in the Tibetan, this as a support. So you can leave that out, it makes it clearer. So being born as a desire realm god, they are suitable for seeing the truth for the first time. In other words, they can attain the path of seeing for the first time in the desire as a desire realm God. And what makes these particular desire realm gods stand out is that as a human being, they achieved a path. And therefore, because of the strength of those imprints or predispositions, they are suitable to realize the path of seeing for the first time, or seeing the truth for the first time.
Kam gome tin las, kam gome tin yela, sukta, sumi, suki la, sumi yela, chasa, and disugula da, tonam sardu kiwa yomarese, tonam sardu kiwa yomares. Lam kiwa yorvesene, solamba yungure, gomlamba yungure, tonam sardu kiwa yomarese, or disugula. Kam gome tin la, dang masa, dang buro. The sukam da, sumi kam la chasala. Solam kiwa yore se, solam kiwa yore. Truptu ki trupura de kiwa zan trupura ba. Maji kiwa yore se. Chisa nyamlen chine sardu kiwa yore besin yore se, solam sardu kiwa yore besin kiwa yungure chire. Chisa solam kiwa yungure ina tolam sardu kiwa yungu mare chire. Yore sardu kiwa yore, de hamla yore debike yore. Yore ko lam dangbo gyune ma kiwa ji dangbo nyamlen jine solam sardu kiwa yungure debel hala yore sukhamla yore desu yungure. Da ineda gari kebar yorosen debel haji kashi gyula 통람 sardu kiwa yungure ese. Dan ini sukham da sumiyel haji gyula 통람 sardu kiwa yomarese ore.
There's a distinction then made between the possibility, or the potential rather, between gods in the desire realm and gods in the form and formless realm. Because we see then in the next sentence, but it is impossible to attain the Arya path for the first time on the basis of a birth in a realm above that. So in the division, the desire realm is the realm where many beings abide, in the lower and higher realms, and above that are two higher realms of form and formless realms. So within those realms, there are beings who have achieved a path, but they cannot newly attain the path of seeing as a form or formless realm God. That is not possible. So there may be beings with a path in their continuum that is born as a form or formless realm God, but they cannot realize emptiness directly for the first time as a form or formless realm God. However, as a desire realm God, not only can a desire realm being realize emptiness directly for the first time and attain the path of seeing, but a desire realm God, if they have the requisite quality of predispositions or imprints, they can progress through all five paths, and in fact can even newly attain a path. So this is the situation for desire realm gods. The difference between the situation of desire realm gods and the other two class, form and formless, is that it's desire realm gods alone that can realize emptiness directly for the first time.
Da debela parche yang se debela dan nyema lam gomne gomshi nyamne yue ting digil kiwa yue ma de shen debela mangche wala parche wala ane ngar sheba dar mikhum be ne so sung be sizan debela mangche wa de mikhum be ne re sizan de zan delia odu shen sung be lam dang bur jubi den mi den se lam dang bur juba se de jeza lam dang bo da di lam dang bo so cholam se wor de 디네기 미콘베네 되벨라 미콘베네 파체와 되벨하디 파체와디 미콘베네 이제 디술이야 람코노사도 겨 요 말에서 당보 람 당보 주바스 된 말에서
Lama Tsongkhapa continues. However, as explained above, the majority of the desire realm gods lack the requisite freedom. So this refers to a couple of pages before, where we're looking at the 8 freedoms, and this was the final one. Long-lived gods long-lived gods are the majority of those within the desire realm, and they cannot progress in this way. However, as explained above, the majority of the desire realm gods lack the requisite freedom, so they lack the freedom to practice in this way. So they cannot attain the path for a first time. They cannot realize emptiness for the first time. What this thus comes down to is, amongst the class of beings, being a human is really of great benefit. It really is the very best of rebirths. There's nothing greater to hope for. This is the very best opportunity. So therefore, one should understand that possessing the vast majority of the freedoms and endowments is, re-express that. Whilst humans possess all the freedoms and endowments, the vast majority can be possessed by some desire realm gods. So therefore, some desire realm gods can engage in spiritual development. But amongst all the classes of beings, the very best basis is that of a human being.
Sanga Dorje Tibe Lam Nyan Che Yo Ma Chi Tu Go Ma Cheza Midi Sanga Dorje Tibe Lam Nyan Che Tu Go Wa Tien Wa Cheza Mi Tien De then Mi Dan Ju Lu Tien De Yak Sho Le Sa De Gum Zero Di Wa De Ke Jero Ma So Na Te Wa Ji Kar Sen Sanga Dorje Tibe Lam Nyan Che Tu Go Wa Tien Wa.
Why is it then said that being a human being qualified with all freedoms and endowments and being a god of the desire realm, some of those very few who have the vast majority of the freedoms and endowments, how come between those two, still being born as a human with freedom and endowments is superior? It comes down to this. What they both have in common is because they have the freedoms and endowments, they can engage in spiritual development, spiritual practice, and they can attain paths and progress through the paths. But there are two, so that's what they have in common. They can attain paths, they can engage in spiritual practice, attain paths, and progress through the paths. There are two differences, though, which mark out a human rebirth as superior to even a desire realm god who has incredible imprints. And those two differences are that it's only a human being that can newly realize emptiness directly, in other words, attain the path of seeing. So for the first time, newly realize emptiness directly, only a human can. And then secondly, that it's only a human being, so this human body, that can practice secret mantra. A god cannot practice secret mantra because their body is not a suitable basis for practicing tantra. So for these two reasons, a human rebirth is superior to even that of a god with remarkable imprints. The two reasons again is that a human can newly realize emptiness directly and can practice secret mantra.
아니 미텐디 초도 주바이나 아니 미차산 레베스인데 미차산 말해서라 내양 자민님에게 아니 냠바 돈베텐도 미루베 링숨이 때랑아바 스나바서 대양 자민님베 돈베텐도 미루베 링숨이 때랑아바 디 나네장 안점물링 인방아포서
That being said, now who really is qualified with the freedoms and endowments, or has this potential, is narrowed down further, and Lama Tsongkhapa continues. Again, inhabitants of the continent of Uttarakuru are unsuitable as a support for vows, which is why those beings of the other three continents are praised, and among them the inhabitants of Jambudvipa are especially praised.
ling shi zi ge rai sha lu ba bo ro zan bo li nu ba la ju jiang zhen me nian se de ling shi le mi yo re si ling shi mi yo wa ji sa jiang zhen me ni bi mi se de le ya mi di ge le ya an dong ba xue yo ma le so re dong ba xue me ba de ji sa dong bei din ma le so re ji sa di ne yan za di su ge la chue nyam le jie ko bi yo ma da chue nyam le sha ji go ma le chue ting yo ma hong zo le.
In cosmology, the universe is presented as comprising of 4 continents, 2 of which are mentioned here. But the 4 are Uttarakuru, Jambudvipa, Vidya, and Gondania. So of these 4, those beings dwelling on the northern continent of Uttarakuru, they cannot generate vows in their continuum. So therefore, they cannot establish the ethical basis to engage in Dharma practice. So therefore, any human born on that continent cannot engage in Dharma practice.
제보도 롱주고 어르시자 진짜 델리아 안 코로나도 튕긴 가르거나 이어바시 아니 강아 직다 마게다 주보게 되네 강아 면서라 되네 매야바지 아니 직 차상 지흘려다 기부요레스 진짜 기부요바자 강아디 딩고 강아 지고 말아 강아 마테도 강아 레세게 탑람 지고 말와 딩고 말 예저 취취하기 또 고비요 딩고 말에 저래도 진짜 그 말된 바데 가라서는 코로나를 개왕하며 수능 사비 수능이 되버디 민제 아니 지게 디기를 바지 제제 바 디기 롱주제 안델이야 또 신다고 거기서 코로나 저기디 강아 마테바자 되네게다 취취하기 딩고 말에 말은 반사다 최지에 된이 듬바미야 말와 최지에게 다 냥해요 말아 매해서 냥하면서 다 상이게 최시야 전에 냥하며 와서다 상이 최시야 비교 말와다 마페어라 이제 마페어서 다 건조 최 도신 매발해서 냠나지 가시 유기로 와다 이네 망쳐와로 시대 이제로 와다 가시 유기로 와서 와다.
Those who are born on Uttarakuru, those humans, they have remarkable or excellent circumstances. Why? Because in previous lives they've accumulated extensive merit. Now they are born in a place that is free of conflict. There's no argument, there's no violence. It's a place of tranquility, a place free of course problems, suffering and difficulties. They really have a very happy existence. And whilst that is very pleasurable to be experiencing, the the great fault of such a rebirth is that they have no reason to turn their minds to the Dharma. They have no interest, therefore, in the Dharma. And for that reason, Buddhas do not take rebirth there, because the people there have no interest in the Dharma. Life is good. And not just for them, but for everyone around them. There's no coarse problems, suffering, or difficulties to even observe, let alone experience. So therefore, they cannot engage in Dharma practice. So that being said, I imagine that there are some beings there who do, but one can say that is incredibly rare. And therefore, on that continent, humans born there cannot engage in Dharma practice, and therefore cannot receive vows, because they do not see life as being pervaded by suffering. They don't see. There's no reason for them to want to turn away from being born in samsara, because their situation is pretty good.
안데네 자다 장점이 미디게 개왕아메게 선음사비 선음이 되버디 바미 롱죄 데네 제델야 선음사바사교 말바 지산 데네 자다 선음사와 마서나 마오바나 데 규마사바나 마오바나 디기야야기 되버디 미야요 말바 제자 데네 자데 마 데네게 다 체로 좋아지 시도디 안 배쟁아 마 배지배쟁아 손라나 기도 거래세래.
Having they attain such a rebirth in dependence on as a karmic result of the merits they accumulated in past lives. Now everything is really good for them, and this every pleasant experience they have is the ripening of past virtuous karmic imprints. So they consume tremendous amounts of virtue there in this rebirth, but they have very little need to engage in the accumulation of further merit. So they probably accumulate next to no merit at all. And therefore, when their death comes, having consumed vast quantities of merit, but not replaced it with much, they are very likely, I imagine, to fall into the lower realms.
나데네게 자다 링숨기난 링숨디다 샬리바바도 로점벌레 누발라주기 미 숨보데다 미나네다 된 야가르시에서데 링숨랑 나와이 숨 링숨이 된랑 나시데다 디 미나네 링시나데 링숨기 된데야 냠는 체기 데 야가르에서래 나세데 야가르에서래 누발라주 지난 샤르 류바포 로 잠볼리 누발라주 링숨 미 링시요르와 링시나네 장자면인다 최제 냠는고 매반자 디나네 링시나네 링숨디다 최제게 약쇼를 해서 된 아마 링숨디세 링시요르와 링시네 장자면인의 최제고 비어만 랍사르와 말에 장자면이라 되대 장자면인데 지사다 장 전면의 취지에 고급여만을 대시에서로니 대시에서도 가려를 다 숨하여로 샬리바 포체 로점의 누발라주 숨디 디숨딜다 냠는 제 여바래서 된 링숨 된라 나스데.
Humans born on the other three continents of Jambudvipa, Vidya, and Godaniya, they can practice the Dharma. The Dharma is present in those worlds, or can be present in those worlds.
Dina ling nane da sha luba dan lo zambal nu balaju di sumgi nane kyang da lo zambal de mi lu den de yakshur he so di nane kyang zambal ba nga so was di sum nane kya da jina da ling sumgi nane nyam lam nyam le che ko bi yeba che den de yak bo le ma che di nane kya lo zambal gi mi de da den de yakshur he se.
So whilst the Dharma is present in the worlds of Godaniya and Vidya, and vows can be received and so forth. The situation for beings born in our world, in Jambudvipa, this is seen as superior, as the very best situation. So therefore, Lama Tsongkhapa writes, and among them, the inhabitants of Jambudvipa are especially praised. So us being born, or those being born in this world, are seen as particularly fortunate, hence are praised for having such a rebirth.
Ganga Chisho de Ganga di Mina Dina de Ganga Che de da Sulu Sanga the Lozumling Midikele, Ganga Che Yores, Yokra Manga Yores, that the shall Lubo Nubalaji Midikelia, Manzu Lozumling Miji de Yokra Chuma Yores. Chizangazu Lozumling Midelia Bes, Nena, Manga, Yokra Manga, Ganga Manga Yubanza, Nijun Ye, Shucheli to Gores. Chizan Ganga Katsi, Ganga Dile Taya, somebody, Ganga Jahak Tong, the Dele Tardu, somebody Gazi Shucheli Gorwa. Chizan Diniza. Lozumble midi yaksho bigumze karesne ganga gi de shukcha wares jezan ganga shoza dele ngejung dige shukche gi tu wore jere.
So it should be clear why those born on Uddara Kuru, whilst born as humans and living a wonderful, comfortable life, from the perspective of the Dharma, are in a sense quite unfortunate. Whereas those of us, those born in the other three continents of Vidya, Gonanaya, and Jambudvipa, are seen as very fortunate because we can engage in the practice of Dharma, the accumulation of virtue, and so forth. But then why is it said that those born in Jambudvipa are particularly fortunate? This is because, ironically, the conditions in the other two worlds of Vidya and Godaniya are comparatively very comfortable. What we experience in our world is much more difficult than they experience. We have far more problems, far more difficulties in our lives than they have. And why this is seen as, therefore, making our world ideal for the practice of Dharma, ideally suited for the practice of Dharma, is because it is through having problems in our lives that we look for solutions. And in this process of looking for solutions, we come across the Dharma, we have an interest in the Dharma, we strive in cultivating the Dharma within. So again, what makes our world as being particularly praiseworthy is that because we have abundant problems and suffering and difficulties, we have a strong wish to look for a solution, to gain freedom from this situation. And that wish is foundational for us to have the determination to radically transform our mind through the Dharma.
Tseji Lujilia, Nasanga Dorje Tipe Lamyam Chebana, Tseji Lujila, Sanja Tuya, Nuba Yores or that and Rangi, the Jeba in the Dingi Chane, the Negi J2 or Ejere.
And moreover, this body that we have attained is a suitable basis for engaging in the practice of Tantra, which means with this body, enlightenment can be achieved in a single lifetime. And that too marks out this rebirth, or rebirth in this world of Jambudvipa, as particularly precious.
Digi Garet didn't Garet Sungores Anzuke Denjugi mi Denju Ludian, Dinane Denjugi mi Ludian de Bemas, a kitchen in the Yoresada, Denju Duenchawa imba, Diki Chembo imba, Za Chembo imba, Didelia, Chigilam Yamlin, Machik Tarba Tamjikimbo want to be Lam Yamle Chasan, G2 Din Kevach in the race, Dimbi Gimzin Deleada, Chiki Lada, Mida, Luda, Deneki Ludinane, Anzuki mi Ludian de Choto Cubare, and Dinade Minane Jadang Juge, Lingsumi Midi Yare, Dinane Jan, Lozumbeling Lutingi, me Lutin, Yashore, said to Dusina Kishiti Marshation, Dusjinma Za Chimbo Yimba, Yumzenti Ma Dustin Sungudwade.
What Lama Tsongkhapa is presenting here is he's making clear that amongst all the wonderful rebirths that are possible in samsara, the very best is that which we have achieved. The vast majority of gods cannot practice the Dharma, and amongst those few that can, our rebirth is superior, because we can, in this rebirth, come to realize emptiness directly for the first time. We can also practice secret mantra. So therefore, our rebirth is superior to even that of the gods. And it certainly is superior than even the most powerful of animals, as we saw in the quotation last night. And because they cannot practice Dharma. And then, as we're seeing here, our rebirth is even superior to humans, to those of humans born in other worlds. So therefore, by recognizing this, we see just how valuable this rebirth is.
난 이네게당 온주기 배진할 되네게 링시기 미 요래서 숨어와 당아서 지단에 센틱 비즈니스 링시비 통고 말하다 링시미디 통고 말 이내다 센틱비 나서 마토나 메비 내가요 말아 그 길리길리 야기 철철든도 하지 마오바나 통하게 통시바시로와 대녀마녀마 이네 센틱 야기 메디 갑라 기가 충충충 소소라나 지되되 근데 기가 과식이 기가 비싼다 가르가르 유메 균에 하고 그거 말봐 되네 이러와데 benenganzo yaada kinyamade nyema kabla kiab chunju mongbo yorwa geborere dezogedo sosoge koryodo mado ningshanda gargar yobede halam hago eriseda de Australia de hago gon kaboro han jelya ji yage dugu jenane ko hago yongro andina 신주로 하다가저게 다댕한 줄이야 직드네 링시 샬류버 샤쇼입니다. 로조 눕쇼 미세드네 주어르시고 제도에는 제사 대등한 주간에 현나데 뒤에는 통고데 통야스가 민도아선배 삼로 지금 고고도 왕저 디네자다 이내다가 저게 유엔나가 저기 통비행에 봐 매반서나 몽반에 통야고 고가지 직신의 영시 바시로와 빈셈제로 신다 천리배 니마 마통와다 로몽배 디렌사 야 사원이 교래세 몽부 통야요로 냐로다 계속나라 셈제 사원이 바래세
A skillful approach to take to the presentation of Buddhist cosmology and other things that one may find a little unbelievable is to understand that just because something is unknown in our world, is unknown to myself and others, it does not mean it does not exist at all. Because, for example, until several hundred years ago, not a single human being in our world had any idea probably of that there was more than one continent. And the vast majority of people, until 100 or a couple of hundred years ago, really had no experience of lands beyond their parameters, beyond their valley or their greater region. And until maybe a century, certainly 2 centuries ago, people living in India and so forth, how many of them even knew of the existence of Australia? Doesn't mean it didn't exist. So as a general point, because something is unknown does not mean it does not exist. And whilst this presentation of cosmology is certainly not in accordance with modern science still makes new discoveries regularly. They're even still discovering animals living within, new species of animals living within our world. So it's good to keep this in mind, that in general, just because something is currently unknown does not necessarily mean it does not exist.
데네게 야고 임바징 안도 하고 그거 말아. 진짜 데네게 키주 데네 야고 여러 세시야도 당하서래 야고 여러 세도 데네 하서래 되버지야를 가르쳐 오다 데네게 때 개바지 데네게 지금 개와치마 하다 미고와 토야다 탈바 탐지 기베고 뭐 죽토에 뛴 데네게 개바진데 아 데네게 비주 땅고도 주고 선배게 샘슈시 해야지 그 되녀게 데려야 안 샘슈시 해야 되는 거로 와 디체도 데인자다 나줄이야 냠술래 이걸로 야 게 마게 바디게 게는 게디게 베네 야데 지기 뉴슈 뉴버 공패도 donye shukche 조야게 don도 and manzu luten디 keche다 yen데 마 송고로 송고be 김전도 디로와.
The purpose of this entire chapter, and certainly what's been made very evident, hopefully, in this point, is to recognize our incredible potential, our great fortune, so as to shake us from this stupor of taking for granted what we have achieved, not recognizing its great value, but seeing it as something ordinary. When looked at from a different perspective, it is quite extraordinary. But until this point, we have largely gone around confused, ignorant to what we have achieved. So here, Lama Tsongkhapa is guiding us to meditate on this, to remove this confusion from our mind, and to recognize just how precious this opportunity it is. And therefore, we must not let it go to waste, but to use it to its fullest extent. He's trying to wake us up from a slumber of deep sleep, and to utilize, rather, what remains of this life well. So the purpose of this presentation, is to develop our wisdom and to give us a strength of mind, an abiding determination to utilize this life well.
Chapter Mambo Tango Kimzendirwa, got Divinalia, Jaladi Chido, Chapter Shutaji, Dilia, Shuja, and Chapter Tango Milia, and T. Yendenma, Chapter Tango, and Telia, Donia Tumbaki, Giodo, Dino Mambola Gorwa, and Dinashin, Tangas Jalal Mason, and as a lieutenant that the case didn't show us in Pachik by Chapter Tangas, Dinigi, she has mentioned in Chevena. And delet meeting, and as you order a lutin dinner to a touching with the Pichu Tang Yakotango, the Sempeda, Pichu Tang, Tony to make it to an altiredo.
Certainly for all of us, if we recognize something as being useful, as being beneficial, we will value it, and we will take care of it, we'll utilize it well. Or if it's something we don't have, and we can perhaps get it, we will strive to get it. This is the whole purpose behind advertising. In advertising, things are presented as having some value to them. That if one just has this product, one's life will be a bit easier. One will have more free time. One will have a bit more happiness. And therefore, one makes plans to go out and purchase this indispensable product. Here, we are trying to recognize what it is that we hold within ourselves, this incredible potential, so that we can develop a strong and consistent dedication to utilize our capacity and fulfill our potential.
And I do see that do see Anzulia, Chevache, some do tango, Resajima, some Dantati, and you get a twin chewa, Milui. Rimbochi Gye Chembo Yimbal Du Shin Du Shimjuche, and some Jigma and Lama Sanji, Deni Sonje Bigi, Besina Lodge Du Shin, that Du Shina, Shimjuchi Jeva Chendu, and Duen Chembo Yahu to Buries, that Du Shin, some Tango Resaji, Du Sungorwa. Deniza that Denegi, Duencha Yinza, that Delia, and the Dang, the Karchiores, and that Dendi, Bishutna, the Din Delia, and Yamanche, Dubaki Warriors.
As has been said many times, including last night, what we should not do with the Dharma is merely accept something as being said by a great authority, as having come from the Buddha or a great master such as the author of this text and so forth, but be open and receptive to what is said and then think about what has been presented, and not to merely think about it once or twice or sporadically, but again and again, deeply. Because this is the process by which one comes to change one's way of thinking, to change one's habitual way of thinking, to overcome deep-seated viewpoints, and to truly accept a new viewpoint. In other words, if one wants to be someone whose mind is focused on the Dharma, wants to be someone whose mind is always engaging in the Dharma and therefore always practicing, this is the very process by which we will become that person. By starting here to recognize what we have and seeing its great potential, developing the determination not to let it go to waste, and that at all times, whatever we're doing, to ensure that our mind is in accord with the Dharma. So this is the very process by which we will become that person. And here, Lama Tsongkhapa now continues, presenting how to think on this topic. Having gained such an excellent basis as this, why would I not make it fruitful? If I do not make it meaningful, could there be any greater self-deception or stupidity?
And ngay lutin di da du samda du da ngay lutin dawa denju gi milu ji machi je do was da denju milu ji machi inza da de ji sheba na shin la da lu da ne shin de ne ge samda da konzu lutin di le ngay lutin de yaga kechue yaga an di ma jang da ling sum ge samda de mina ji be de ling sum ngay di lutin lo zambel ge mi lutin re di za ngay lutin de le de ne ge dian yuan den kya ba chi du san be ge de ne ge samda de ne ge Direbe Dian Sambo Toba, sitting a denigate Yahweh Topsha, and 18 the Resha, some big Dushin and some down or essay.
The first part, having gained such an excellent basis as this. Here then, recognizing from the first outline that we've been reflecting on, that I've achieved all 18 freedoms and endowments or leisures and opportunities. I have achieved all of these. Therefore, this excellent basis, this precious human rebirth, is superior to that of what even gods have achieved, and superior to what other human beings from other worlds have achieved. There is no better rebirth than what I have achieved.
Tarbada Tamji Kimbo Kovan Todugan Yamne Dinigi Jetumne, Dela Din and Jebu, Tarbada Tamji Din Dela Yamne Jebu, Tarbada Tamji Kimbo Kovan, Gech Malhada Mikovan, Dinigi Top Tugu Yobane, Yamne Dinning and Yamne Majeba Jebu de Marawajene, Dini Gongche Carriers, Jigo Minda Jehu Duas or that, Ganaching the Jebu de Maba Chigaris. Dim Ratugu or the Ratugu Tuguyena. ngay di malenpa che kharche ni malenpa sha gore se orda chik di topji rai di pechu che khorwa chigi yin se orda ji chir jebu me par chas.
So therefore the first reflection here is recognizing what we've achieved. So it's combining the meditations presented above as well as with last week. Seeing what we've achieved, then Lama Tsongkhapa makes a second point. Why would I not make it fruitful? In other words, why would I not fulfill my potential and attain or progress rapidly towards the attainment of liberation and enlightenment? Having achieved this potential, how could I not fulfill it?
소수기 되니기 된다 첨부 된 죽투기 여바디 하고게 되니기 된다 첨부 죽투기 여바디 소소 시나 너무 마셔 봐이네 나 소소소 고가다 말해서 랑게랑 류바 소소소소기 소소레 용제 말해서 봐다 진짜 랑게랑 류바세도 류바세나 지금 미션인데 지금 고가다지 된다 주마주고 고가다지 주마주 류바서 한마지 근데 绿吧是的，过两个是这个爬这个这个路上也不接，但可能国家也不去开上这个呢，米西个国家当这过来啊，那就做嘛就是用上去吧，那的绿吧是过来国家当，今天是的说让给的透过月吧的电商不定的月吧进来呀，说个马街吧，说个马街吧呢，说个用当的，说让国家当吧的，国家当吧切个的些，让绿吧的些。
Lama Tsongkhapa continues this way of thinking. If now that I recognize what I have achieved, then he continues, if I do not make it meaningful, could there be any greater self-deception or stupidity? So recognizing what we've achieved, the very best of possible rebirths, it would be foolish not to fulfill my potential. When death comes, if I haven't done so, I will be the one suffering a loss. I will have ended up deceiving myself. How could I be so stupid? How could I be so stupid?
的梦吧，差地里去吧，个这继续是，其实的那个梦吧还没好啊，但基本的是，其实还没好就用修啥玩意，这个了吧是，其实的那这地里用吃哇，地里差不吃哇，继续地里用吃哇就要嘛的是我的。其实他用吃话是的，而是呢，然后就是加拿大是那边呢，然后加拿大人也去主要有这个吃过了，就是今天是，当然就给我起码点点了呀，他们给我讲他那米国帮托推给，开会女朋友把的了呀，你俺这个马主办呢，给我起码他那米国帮托推过嘛的，就是他给我起码俺送来给了，就是用几十个来其实，俺的那些。当然最点的了，他比如说定义的，俺就国外的个人定义的话的嘞，其实定义的话，他把他们这几个国外的定的了，ทุก国的，但俺说个马主把这，你们马这把这下吧呢，的那个定义的话来的，让ทุก国嘛，这用全部休息话，这里用吃话就要嘛的，其实俺就国外的定义的话的各国的定义的话的马了呢，的俺就用全部休息话，这里用吃话就要嘛的，是这里吃话继续是。这话继续写的嘛多，对吧？对。
Here in the reflection, Lama Tsongkhapa is guiding us to recognize that there is no greater stupidity than wasting this incredible opportunity. Now that we've recognized that we have the very best of rebirths, we have everything possible. Everything that is possible we can achieve. But if I allow myself to remain deceived by striving for temporary pleasures, overcoming insignificant problems, when death comes, I may well end up in the lower realms. This opportunity will be lost and suffering will follow. And if I don't make any progress towards liberation in this life, what a fool I would have been. And I would have been such a fool by deceiving myself. No one else did this to me. So here we need to recognize this, to wake us up from this self-deception that we've lived with for so long.
Tarvati, Dumedo Dangne, Ne Dedato Lo Ne Dronani, and Ringagi, Momba Shindu, Dagi, Semebo, Euro, Nyamba, Sodio Gone, Yang Gumbarjades.
Lama Tsongkhapa then continues. Having passed over and over through the many perilous places that lack freedom, such as the lower rebirths, were I to render this unique opportunity for liberation meaningless and go back to those places, I would have lost my mind, as though confused by a magic spell.
제산 가르쳐서는 난주기 개와 디 아니 간조라 소바세데 베는 냐와다 이다다 dunrola 소바 되니기 다 지금 망보지 개와 기여래서 미콘바 소비 미콘바기 네 미콘베네 아니 제가 체를 보셔야 돼 두시네 미콘 망보기네 기여래서 간조라 소바세데 간조라 소바 미라고 진야와 이다 dunrola 체를 보라 소비기 되니 당한주기 되니기 망보기네 미콘베네 나라 기에시네 청세 청망보 규규네세도다 청세의 깔레요다 냐와래 녀위를 기네 동아 깔레뇨야다 이달에 기네 강아뇨야다 dunro를 기네 강아뇨 되니기 뒤도 신직 규네 직직 개와래 하직교 또 망보 개와래 이제 안 되니기 타마랑 가지고 쇠남 요원게 디링 단주기 밀리 디토바레세 렌직삼 탈바서 제상한송의 동아래 코와래 바 타장한 디링 안 밀리딘
Having passed over and over through the many perilous places that lack freedom, such as the lower rebirths, this then is referring to we have been circling in cyclic existence for lifetimes without measure. Lifetime after lifetime, we've either been suffering in the lower realms or distracted by meaningless pursuits in the higher realms. This we've just gone on. We've been caught in this process, birth after birth, this never-ending process. This we need to think about, generating a fatigue, a disenchantment for this unending process. Coming to recognize that this now is one of the incredibly rare opportunities we have ever achieved to break this cycle, to destroy this wheel of existence.
세상다 디링 렌직다 데니기다 ngan송다 데니 미곤바케나 다 탈바 담지기고 고마도 남냠네 지역에 땡코롱 요마로고 요마로와 세상 디링다 데니기다 디링 렌직 삼녀마 쇠남게 왕게 쇠남사세 쇠남게 왕게 디링 렌직 삼 단지기 밀리르미 톱토요레스 세상 톱투바자 땡델야다 이 탈바다 탐지기고 고마 토야기 남냠네 지역이 제반에 제투에 누버 여제 바레스 세상디 여바디 데메도 따나스 다 데니기 즉 데메도 따나선 투기 데니기 냠네 제 투기 여바디 냠네 마제바제 샤샤바나 데메도 따와도 남야바 주송아레스 데니기 따와나다 로팜보레스 제 데메도 따니에사.
Now that I've recognized what a remarkable opportunity that I have, an opportunity to accumulate virtue, in other words, to slowly and then radically transform my way of thinking so that my mind becomes minds of the Dharma, so my minds become the Dharma. Now that I recognize this opportunity, Lama Tsongkhapa continues, were I to render this unique opportunity for liberation meaningless and go back to those places, in other words, if I waste this opportunity, if I don't utilize my potential, live up to my potential, but just remain bound within the suffering realms of samsara, potentially falling back to the intense suffering of the lower realms, or continue to be distracted by meaningless pursuits in these higher realms, if I were to waste this opportunity, that would continue.
니게와치마 하나미 고모토비기 람냠렌 다니 추르마송바 로소바 냠렌 마제바 탈바다 탐제기베 고모도 람냠렌 마제바 있나 안네 가르쳐서네 신이가 어두고서는 내 양가선 기도로와 네 대다도 로네 해서다 된주게 된래 기와래데 야 네당가선 된라 봐 로네 생가선 봐 기도고래서 로네 조나니 안네 링하기 몽바 신도 다네 셈메버 유로 냠바 세도다 데네마 지냠스 말렘바이나 아니 가오로데 신이가 가오로스는 간손이 기도고래서 간손 바로도 고래서 다데 로도 고래서 간손 기도고래서 다 데네 기도바나 다 가르스냐 데네기다 데네기 주비하고 고고 여바들 마우주바지 되어바데 빼지 링하게 몽바신도 빼지 가소래 미 링하신다는 빼네 나로 데제 나 자제 나 바치 지 안주기 지에 Denige City Zambi in the Dingizilia, Naro, Ranji Dubala Sobata, Denige and Mongbala, Hamorova, Karsuri, Denige, Chigo, J. Bache, Shanda, Ringa, Jinga, Doro, two young midi, Chimomba, Hamoro, Yumbaro, Seshavia, Denijevana, she is. She's a Denijevana, she is. Mumbai Shindu. Denijeva in the Ringa, Mumbai in the some local down to go, Yamlejaki, Kobragio, Hagu Marwas, the Yumana, she was, Monty, but was. She's a Dinashin, Dani, same member Euro, what's it? Same member Euro sitting and the Pendi Trubigi and the Yamlenchegi, Samnodi, and the Hamohoach, Meva Chargores, Meva, Chipares, that. Same member Euro city that, the Nigan, some of the township, Pendi to the Dijan, Yapore, D and Pebbles in the Diapore, Dimagina, and Dijan, New Gorse, some of the machine, but the Chiparesias, Jinis, Gonshiburag, said, Lucina some Tangores.
So here, Lama Tsongkhapa is saying explicitly, and guiding us in this meditation to recognize explicitly for ourselves that we have this incredible opportunity, this unsurpassable opportunity. There is no rebirth better. There is no better opportunity that anyone else has than what we've achieved to accumulate virtue, to progress towards liberation and enlightenment, and to waste it, to let it just pass, distracted by meaningless pursuits, and end up potentially born in the lower realms. This is foolhardy. Then he continues, were I to render this opportunity for liberation meaningless, in other words, not fulfill my potential, and go back to those places, the suffering lower realms, or continuing in high realms, chasing meaningless pursuits, I would have lost my mind. It would be as if all this knowledge that I've gained through teachings such as these, as if I'd somehow lost that. It would be as if I never knew this. Or alternatively, as though confused by a magic spell, that having gained this knowledge, somehow something happened that made us waste this opportunity. So here we've been guided to recognize what a great waste of all this knowledge that we now have gained, if we would then let ourselves fall into the lower rebirths again. To have this power of this knowledge in our hands, but not to use it, is utterly mad.
Dinege sono yane yado kombracha de se dine yane yado sam tangore se ore da donda ningbo de gar sungore sene da donda la da lüdin de az dostine da ji danju ngwe songwa da danju dunchewa gomba se da gom se de da de yane yado dina sam da yane do gom sungoro da gom se de yane yado sam ta ya de se ore 제가 다디 가네스 공부를 쓴다 당봉한 주기 다와 계다 미군배 내디게 제 하고 같이 제가 당한 주 루틴데 대 미군배 계다 다와에서 다와래샤 진짜랑 저경하다 현정아 상하다 저거 주상하다 튕겨서 저거 창되샤 집에 되네게 나주기 루틴데 되네도 왔습니다. 이 루틴데 단주기 루틴에도 와선배다 뭐였송하지 Dene ngoyosong sane da danju luden den delaya anjik denige lam nyamlen cheyagi tarbada tamje kimbe goban toyegi lam chasa nyamlen che tuguyo bada benenga ju gewa chima lada mi goban toya ni nyamlen che ne che tuguyo ba dene den delaya tarbada tamje kimbe goban toyegi lam nyamlen chasa je tuyegi nubo yoge ni den chaba chen resha sambe dene samda Dine samdane 당해디 된 쳐봤젠디 디링 베주에 따디 땡텔이야 람 냠는지 마제바네 인다 네 제부 투기 여바데 말아가지고 경시부 차사래 다 디링에디 땡텔이야 베주에 따디 땡텔이야 냠는지 아 샘비게 디삼도 야네야 땅 고래서 왔다디 데니게 삼다 야네야도 곰세 디스고다 그래 진짜 야네야도 공부를 자세히 디스고다
Lama Tsongkhapa concludes the meditation by saying, thinking in this way, meditate again and again. So here you have something presented to you that you can utilize in your own meditations. And you see here Lama Tsongkhapa stating what you would have heard from me many times. Meditate again and again. I can't overemphasize the need for repetition. Reading the text again and again, hearing teachings on the same topics again and again, and reflecting again and again on the same topics. This is how one meditates. The meaning of meditation is habituation. Developing habituations to the minds of the Dharma, and breaking our current habituations to minds that are not of the Dharma. So this is a key point. So then what to meditate on again and again? It's all that has been covered thus far in the previous outline and what we've covered so far in this outline. Firstly, in your meditation, recognize that you have achieved these freedoms and endowments. You have all 8 freedoms. You are free from unfree states. Moreover, you have the endowments, the 5 pertaining to oneself and the 5 pertaining to others. All that is required, each and every one of us possesses. And then combine with what we've seen here, that this opportunity that we have is superior to what any other kind of being within samsara has. How incredibly fortunate we are. I cannot continue to allow my life to be lost in distraction, trying to overcome insignificant problems and achieve temporary pleasures. Otherwise, I'm no different from an animal. Moreover, now that I recognize and have this understanding, if I do not put it to full use, it would be like I was deceiving myself. So then these are all the points that we have covered thus far, and we come to the conclusion. I must strive to cultivate the causes that lead to liberation and enlightenment. This is what I need to have my mind fixated on. At all times, to have minds of the Dharma, recognizing, for example, the preciousness of this human rebirth, and not to let it go to waste.
Chizna de ten de ya tarpa tamje kimpe lam kar tu na tu tuye gi ten khabar chi chi yin sembe samda di yin de za da ten de ya ngi chi ke duen yo ba chi chi yin sembe duen yo ba chi su de ten de ya ngi nyamlen tarpa tamje kimpe ko ba ben la da mi ko ge wa chi la da mi ko ba to ya da tarpa da tamje kimpe ko ba to ya lam nyamlen ji ya sembe gi da di ya ne ya la samda de da don da di da den ju gi lu den ju gi ane duen chao kasa den ju lu ngwe so ma duen chao gom si de ya ne gom si de 진짜 다 대지 망보 시에 된 것도 그 제시를 모처 제도에다 제시를 김체를 망보 시에 망보 차송과 다 디니기 그 돌뒤에 제수 차서 하고서 담말 양은 삼다다 당연히 루틴디 단주 루틴이 된del이야 안 냠낸 가르 제베 탈바 탐지 기보 고고도 뉴버 차서 유에딩이 된 개발제 이 지산 된 개발제 등이 준비 지가 가서 초라마다 와지 된del이야 다 제부 유버 된다 유버 중에 줍투베기 냠낸 지긴 선배게다 두신에 야는 삼당 오래서
to present the meditation in a brief manner, but for you then to flesh out in your actual meditation, is the first outline comes down to recognizing that we've all possess these freedoms and endowments, this precious human rebirth. Coming to that recognition, I have this, I have achieved this. And then moving into the second outline, where we develop a recognition of the great value of this life, the meaning, the potential meaning that can be achieved with this life. And recognizing thereby, I can do this. So first we recognize, I have this, now we recognize, I can do this. And utilize then all that's been presented here, seeing that unlike so many other beings, I have this opportunity, and I can do this. I am truly fortunate. Therefore, and this is the key conclusion, the real purpose of this meditation, I will not let this opportunity go to waste. I will no longer allow my mind to be distracted by achieving mundane pleasures and overcoming superficial problems. I'll take care of my mind, of where my mind is at all times, and I won't let this opportunity go to waste.
Dennis and Kivishin disocomsed Mangbosun, Jumjashin, Tara, Tamagomia, the Carresene, and Kivishin, Kusundu, Kivishin, Dena, Pen Yobada, Medina, Social Yoragu Basamta, then Kivishin, Kusundu, and then Kivishin, let Debatsi to Comiatis, and Kivishin Rally, Chue, Tempig, Tempas, getting Chambores, and Cuba Comiadi, Comiadi, the Kivishin, Comsedi, Tizocom said, Comiadirvada, sometime and sometime. Nibada, Tanganzuki, Danju, Weswada, Danju Dunchewa, Gomnan Kare, Lavioda, Gomnadi, Ranzu Luden, Danju Dunchewa, Dawaketan, Joa, Chusai, Party Samta, this Samta, Dawaketan, Joa, Chu, said in West Hagowachi, Ding Wilson. Then it in Delia, Ludin Delia, that did Daju Ludin that Daju Ludin Delia and the Carrioresena, Dendelia. Kiwachimal had a milk about to be Yamlet and Yamlet to go over Tarbata, Tamjakin Bokoma, Lam Yamlin Chebana, Chazan J to be in Kevach in body Wilson, the and Dunchawai, Yeshima, the Wilson, and the Dendeliangi, and Jig Yamlet, Mutisha, Hudapata, Chickens and Piggy, that the nigger some died in Azuki, and Danger, and you, Castle Wilson, that you don't show come, said the some Yana and died, that door. And
you can flesh out the meditation, because this is now the second primary topic that we have covered thus far in the text. So in your meditation, you can start with the first primary topic, which was on relying on the spiritual teacher, wherein the first point was to reflect on the benefits of relying on a spiritual teacher and the fault of not doing so. Then one recalls his many excellent qualities, those in relation to his physical behavior, his speech, and his mind, in order to generate faith in him, faith or trust in him. Then one recalls the tremendous kindness that he has shown, and one does so in order to generate respect. And the purpose of generating faith and respect is it leads one to wanting to follow his advice. You see him as respecting him and trusting him or having faith in him. You want to follow his advice, his guidance. And that brings us to this chapter. This is the first issuance, the first guidance that is offered. And that starts with recognizing this precious human rebirth that we've all achieved. This incredible opportunity that comes with these freedoms and endowments that we all have obtained. Do not let them go to waste. Do not be like an animal following meaningless pursuits. What we have each achieved is superior to what any other being has achieved. We can cultivate definite emergence. Bodhicitta itself, even realize emptiness directly and become Buddhas. All of that is our potential. Do not let it go to waste. So this then is how we can combine the topics that we've covered thus far.
Kivishin Densu that in it sometime to the Tampo de Shasar Pachicha. Then how Jelia to Lobsang Dorje, Jelia, Jelia, Kivishin Densu like the Congo line sometime, Lamsa order, Kivishin in a payenda, made him be Yemiti sometime, the Kivishin Kuso Unit, Tell Debacomiata, Ran the Tinchiba somebody, getting Yana and Samia de that he comes to sometime, did it, Salamsa to Gurua. Dinajinda Nazuki Tawaki, Caso, Tenji Milurimbuche said, the Geshe Mangbochi, the Dambo Geshe Captain March, Chasa Hakovachi, Jelia, and Tenji Milurimbuche, Lavio, the Lamsa Samana Kalioso, a Dawaki, and George Usavil in the Lagores and big Lamsa Dick Lemurwa. She's not that the Dwencha in Baccaras, or Ditin de la Trapa, the Temje came to go out to the Lada Mugo to Ludin, Chasan Duke to go to Lagores, to be Nuba Sigores. And then she's not doing Dambo and I do that. And Tisha going on and Gemana, then you Denju Ludin Lavio or that Denju Ludis Dawagena George Chusanwari, Dien Delia, and the Hadami, Komato, Tarbatanji, Lam Yamne, Chasan to Jitu water, that didn't have the Hada Mida, Dien Chodo Yuba, the Denju Miluded, but Reda, some big Lamsa Samnati, Leongua. Leo that did Chodo Yuba, but Yinza, made Dindela Yamne Jigi, some big that Dubakia, some year. She's not the
Now, time together, we've covered a number of different chapters, and of which we've covered one meditation topic in its entirety, and now we're starting on the second. So the way to engage in the meditation, which I hope you've been doing thus far, and if you haven't been able to, that you do start to do from now, is that as you receive teachings on a particular topic, meditate on that in detail. And you can add to what you've heard previously to that. But meditate on what's new in detail, adding what you've heard previously to that. Just like I mentioned in the segment immediately previous to that. So there are two parts here. Meditate on the new information in detail, because now this is new, and then bring into that meditation what you've heard previously. So this is the way that as we progress slowly through this text, you have the opportunity to cultivate each of these minds of the Lamrim deeply within you. So the way to produce the very best results is to consider each topic in detail. First, as it's taught. And as you're going through the meditation, as it's taught, you'll broaden your analysis with your own insights. You will come to understand the topic from your own perspective. And that you add to what is being presented. Because what's presented is always the starting point. And it's for each of us individually to take it that much deeper. So this is how, by meditating on the same topics over an extensive period, your understanding deepens. Moreover, when one has reflected well on a topic, or express it like this, to whatever extent one has reflected on a topic, when one later hears that topic mentioned, no matter how briefly, all of what you have cultivated within will arise within your mind. So therefore, for example, for those who have meditated deeply on relying on a spiritual teacher, now that I've just briefly mentioned the key outlines in that chapter, so much will have arisen in your mind. Whereas if it's still a bit new, or you haven't meditated on it in detail, you'll only be reminded of that topic. So therefore I encourage you to meditate in the way that I'm describing here, because it will have a deep impact on your mind. And then when you attend summary teachings, not detailed ones like this, where you hear the topic, the points of the path mentioned in brief, so much will arise in your mind. Just a brief overview will have a deep impact on your mind. Independence on your prior endeavor. And to the extent that you do train in the way that I'm describing here, you will feel the Dharma arising within you. And this is crucial, because this is what will give you confidence to continue to apply yourself to hearing the teachings, reading the teachings, and meditating on them.
That is a Dambo Loja Majabene, Denju Lude said the career labdi, and Denju Milurim Michelle the career labdi, that Teshika Yomada Merwa. Then Lobjan JJ and the Lobjan Jedam, Margine, Chictu Cinema, Chiclo, the Dambo Sargic Lova, Samiagic, Semle Eva, Timburi, Kumarwati, Thursday, and the sometime, then Danju Lude said the Keshet in the Stemba Shimba Hako. Then Duen Choim by the Tenishim becomes a Hawad, and Mahobana Jan Savichelia, Denju Ludin Lavion de Lamsa, or the Tawaget George House, the similar to Yada, and 된체와 삼당에도 레라변도 남서 어딘데라 밀리를 뭐 토야기 규차상 냠는 지투고래 탈비고바 토야기 냠는 차상 지투고래 산조고바도 도비치도 냠는 차상 지투고래 셈비기 되게 삼로도 콜 투고 콜 남상 콜레그와 제가 뒤에서 저기 두 바직 장도 지 바로아티 지지 장도 지어도 제가 된체와로도 남상 디스 파치 레투야다 밀리가서 대줄로도 남상 레투야디 삼로도 콜 투고로 받아 제가디 맞아 봐야나 저기 로좀 맞아 봐야나 매 이네 여아치 마신 봐제 이내다 차지고 로바좀 양지 셈는 안망에나 네 제만의 고요도 양지 아디 가르나 지 라기도 때 가르나 다 딩기면서 베디 차르고와 대고 지금 로아지 바직도 선 삼당에 버려 차서 예여도 있는 마음바나 지그레 토요도 don다서 어디요래 셀지 참사 로야 네투에 준 거로 와 제자디네 고 고묘드네 이 곰디우래 곰디우를 망고체라 삼당과 비지나요와 차다 레레 삼당과 동거마 곰디우로 와데 곰지디 곰이야기 냠네체 둠디우 책으로 와
Taking this topic, but it relates to any Dharma topic. Before one hears a presentation, say on the freedoms and endowments, one will have no idea what this refers to, or precious human rebirth. One will have no idea what it refers to. And if someone talks about the great value of the freedoms and endowments, it means nothing. Having heard one or two teachings, but not yet having reflected well, or studied or reflected well, all that will come when one hears this is the topic is a recognition of the words and a very vague understanding of what it's about. So at least there are some imprints, fresh imprints on one's mind. So that's something. But that's not what we are looking for. What we are looking for is a mind that is transformed. What we are looking for is the kinds of qualities that are described in the text. We're looking to find them within, to experience them in a sustained manner within. And the way to bring that about is to, this process of repetition, keep hearing the same teachings and reflecting on them ever more. The more one does apply oneself to this, then just one is particularly as the way that I mentioned how to meditate in the previous segments about putting great emphasis on what's new again and again, and then bringing together what one has heard previously to that. In this way, the topic becomes very deeply ingrained. For it to be ingrained, the three aspects of reading, hearing teachings, and reflecting need to be repeated extensively. And then, when this has happened for each topic, merely hearing, for example, precious human rebirth, an excitement, a joy will arise in one's mind. Because just hearing the term precious human rebirth, immediately what you have recognized in meditation in the past, its great value will arise. And moreover, with that meditation, having had a lasting impact on oneself, there will be an experience of joy in that I'm fulfilling my potential. I am using my life well, rather than just an aspiration. Now you know, I am living this life well. So this is a sign of someone who's put in the time and the energy to train their mind. Then when they just hear some key words, it brings this joy to their mind. And with such a person, with this knowledge and experience, which has come about through their endeavors in the way that I'm describing, they can meditate anywhere. Whatever they are doing, they are able to be reflecting on the Dharma because it is so ingrained within them. They are never bored. They are never struggling to have time to practice because they can call the Dharma to mind easily because they've heard many teachings, read the same text again and again, and reflected on the same topics again and again. And therefore, wherever they are, wherever their mind is, the Dharma is.
내가 저기 지바라 지소 롭상 롭존 안에 지게 앙지 라요도 때 장게지 예수미 자담 바바 신부에 신행들이야 앙지 신와래라 그 말하다 제제 앙지 장고를 가르 장고를 자담 바다 신구에 랍는 다다 체계 말와 제자되네 앙지 나로 앙지 라요 디나래야 지게 텐지세다 줄지세다 괴지세다 아니 지게 나 지게 망우도와 제자되네 거 두시는 파rin바시는 장제 장사간디 유유겐 장사간디 제마 앙지 장고를 라면도 셈 차산 대용으로 유지다 텐지도 고서 디 차산 디어다 세죠 디스 장고를 람사 셈 차고로 지금 니네가 아직고 롭좀 맞진지나 지금 장거 자담 바바의 신구에나야 다 아직 장고를 어 당가 자담 바바의 신구에 장고에 매라나 디가 말아 같이 하고야 말아 하고 그거 맞지나 아직 장고를 라면도 람사 예만 마 장사겐디 어디 angzise dinare desel maso dinare rik dususu yore desusu yore sebelamsa lol chartya jungorwa 당한 저기 두시네 장외네 제가 지단계 아주 로사데 지비지게 하러 왔다 조단으로 집어차대로.
This method by which one transforms one's mind, I don't think any of you have heard anything new. And I don't think any of you have heard something you have never done in your life, because this is the process in society that we have all used. For example, when we were all much younger than we are now, we had to learn the basics of mathematics. And we had to learn first the numbers, how to count, and the correct sequence. And then we had to learn how to use those numbers in varying ways, starting at the very basic level. And I know all of you were well educated, and your teachers spent time with you making sure not just that the teachers gave the right presentation, but that you understood. And I know that this was done because everyone here can count, everyone can do multiplication and knows various usage of mathematics. And this is because you took the time, when you're little, to learn in the correct sequence, and not just know it in theory. You didn't leave it at being able to recognize numbers on the blackboard, but you were able to utilize it. And some of you may have well become so skilled in mathematics that you see how it's expressed everywhere in our material world. And everywhere you go, you can utilize this knowledge. That is the same process that is to be done to develop the Dharma in our own minds.
나는 마 전주레스 또 나대지 공을 셔봐도 지바로래 다 전주 나라 가서 송여라서네 나 제름시 송여디 디 김체 아니 가서 전주 나라 안제스 지발래 집에 송여래서 전주레스 디린 다와 니규르니 다게 개고 맞아봐 딜레 류바 셴메데 딜레 몽바 셴메도 셰 송세.
Particular quality of Lama Tsongkhapa's style is that all that he asserts, he backs up with authentic sources. So now we come to some quotations which show that what Lama Tsongkhapa is presenting is not just his opinion, but it comes from authentic sources, starting with Shantideva. Having found this kind of freedom, if I do not cultivate virtue, then no deception could be greater. Nothing could be more confused than that.
Zadan diri dawani yunesin diri sidu di dawa le diri lavdu manzu din tele ya ane dawa jedan jowa chusanwe ki din tinye din tele ya ane tarba lada mi goban tobi ki chasan nyamle je tuyo ba tarba da tamje ki goban tobi ya ki ane din khabar jenjik dira denegi dinashin da denegi din khabar jenjik 아주 대비된데 니요레서 니요레스 니 톱요레스 니 유네슨 톱요레서 톱네다 소속이 다 데니기 탈바다니 깨와치말 하다 미고바 토야게 개위 냠는 마셔봐 된 탈바다 탐지 기베 고바 토비 개위 개와 검지 냠는 마셔봐이나 다게 개고 마셔봐 딜 류바 셴메도 세데 딜레 알아주게 지 gyongre da delia and chik gohor teba le dile ha gohor te ju yo mares and dile mongba sheme do se da dinigi mongba mashingba dinigi dile ha ba ju yo mares sheme do se da di de ji de na shi chi bar cha
Having found this kind of freedom, so again in this chapter, freedom means free from restrictive states, having free time in essence, so not freedom as in liberation. So having attained this kind of freedom, the 8 freedoms as well as the 10 endowments, we have this remarkable potential to achieve liberation, to achieve the omniscient state of enlightenment. This is something that we all have the potential to do and have now, at least intellectually, recognized that we have as our potential. So and Shantideva continues, if I do not cultivate virtue, if I do not now apply myself to cultivating the minds of the Dharma within through extensive study and reflection, then there would be no greater deception than that. I would be deceiving myself. I would be allowing myself to continue to think that pleasures that have no real value actually do, or that problems that have no real significance actually do. I would be deceiving myself. And the verse concludes, nothing could be more confused than that. So it would be as if I was remaining ignorant of the fact that I've achieved this incredible rebirth, when in fact I have heard about it, and I recognize, at least intellectually, my potential.
당한 저 리딘데다 다와케다 주어 주신 소소라랑 다 공부가 소소라랑 아랑게 리딘데다 다와케다 주어 주서 리딘지레샤 데딘델이야 람냠네 가래 제베나 제투예기 니베기 레샤 배 오레샤 승인디 다 개왕아메게 수능사 별에 때네 안에지게 데네기 드링이 리딘 야고슈 토샤 승인 리딘데 데네기 직계 야구 휴제샤스는 나바시도 차상기 야구를 해야 돼. 뛰어가 나서 차거로 지단 상계당 전주선바 차상기 미션 차상기 결혼에 뛰는 배 야구를 해야 돼. 뛰어가 나서 차거로 차상 디네자 디네기 유대라고 해서 디텐델랑에 돼. 야 안지게 개베냐면 다직 강투두지기 선배게다 디도시나 삼다야데 저게다 디링 takasana dirin da chiagi to nani bo samdai da di samdai dire da ga.
So here in this verse, really it summarizes what we've looked at thus far in this chapter, that we have achieved these freedoms and endowments as precious human rebirth. And this is really something that we are truly fortunate because of its incredible value. And it has come about independent on our own efforts. In other words, this opportunity, we ourselves created the causes that led to it. And all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, they recognize our potential. They recognize our potential. Therefore, they praise us for having achieved this opportunity. So this is something then that we too need to truly recognize for ourselves.
개와 치마 개와 아마게 지기 개와 약보 사셔 약보 중셔 선비기 개와 아미기 간사지 개와 사한델이야 개와 사바델 지수 유난치야나 디르랑 길리딘 데니기 개위 잡이 토비기 딘 개발진 임바데 약보레샤 선비 소소기다 뽑어기야 이 리딘 배 약보레 선비다 나게기야 말에 뽑어기야다 나게니 데스카데 지사 뽑어기야 다 데니기 뽑어기네 딘델량이 개위냐면 탈바 탐지 기변냐면 람냐면 리바데 지기 산베게다 데 데니기 닝도기야다 데 샘슈시야 되다 가지 지긴세베 돈이 듬바기야 되래 돈이 듬바디야 게 고미야다디 돈나 소 고미야디레다 돈나
The importance of this point is that this life that we have, this opportunity, it didn't just fall into our laps. We created the causes. So we, therefore, in our past lives, made great effort to accumulate all the causes that led to us having achieved a rebirth, which is of incredible rarity across all the various beings in samsara. And we ourselves have done that. The point here is to generate a confidence that I've done this in the past, I can do it again. In the past, I had a mind that would have been determined and focused on the Dharma. I can strengthen my determination now. So in this way, we reflect that in our past lives, what a wonderful job we have all done in creating the many causes that are required. And now with this freedom, we have many choices in how we spend our life. The direction we go in is completely in our own hands. And all that is holding us back is our own effort. So thinking this way gives us confidence, gives us determination to transform our lives.
Alright. And in this, I'm going to get some that in it, that is just not to do.
So then we can conclude here for this morning. If you have some questions, then please feel free to ask. Yes, at the back.
Yes. Look, you make reference to these other continents, and in some of them life is very easy and there doesn't seem to be any struggle, so people don't go and do anything to the Dharma. I'm wondering if these continents, by virtue of not being difficult places and are quite easy, are they still samsaric realms?
So the other continents which seem to have better conditions than ours, especially the northern continents of Uttara Kudu, because there's no conflict there and no aggression and so forth, and one has really comfortable circumstances, is that still considered samsara? Yeah.
지난도 코어와 그래서네 고 수부티게 판 닝버 차로 연구로와 지난 되게 차로 전 가sam질이야 아니 시도도 강아티로 와대 강아티지 맞지 찍고 지도 코어서 코어래 다 라왕메 봐 시도로 와 코어를 줘봐이나 라왕메 봐 시에요 말이야 지난도 고 라왕메 시에래 라왕요 말 가투에 가야 말 매자 라왕메 봐 시대 시도로 코어 봐 코어래 디라기로 세링그레 세링와래 튕게 야가요로 와라.
Yes, so all four continents are within samsara, and the one where things are particularly pleasurable is this Uttara Kudu. So whilst one's life is really good in that continent, one still approaches death, and one will die, and one's death will come. One doesn't have freedom over the situation. They cannot will away their death. Death will come, so that their pleasures will end. So therefore, whilst they are not experiencing manifest suffering, that very pleasant environment is not lasting. So it is very much within samsara. Then I'll just ask Geshe, so how does that a rebirth there as a human differ from being in the God realms? And he said it's the God realms are even more pleasurable and they have longer lifespans and differences such as that. Okay.
So that aspect of being uncontrolled, that death will come, is the same samsara.
Exactly that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
Do Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, do they attain liberation at some point? Or do they have to go through the Bodhisattva process to attain liberation?
Okay.
상계발라 두고로와 다상 마제바지 코로나 냠내 직된데 두고 말와다 이내다 고도 타르바 톱사란자 그 가시는 요거는 장쇼쌤 냠는 제가 용거래 가시한 유능부 제일 야전심 냠는 제가 용거래 가시 지게 다준비 되고다 배 냠샤치네 유능부 냠샤되더니 상얘기마 진일랍제다 결혼 다준비 되고 가서 우리 다준비 토마도 기 결혼 다디드누 제부 톱살요 말다스네 상예랑게 다준발라 송비게 도요래 결혼다 다준비 요모부 빵사와리데 결혼다 빵자 차상 빵사요 톱자 차상 톱자 내는 결혼 톱야 몽볼 하되요래 세 상예 송진데 되네 마 자주심 냠는 제대 되네 되네 용거래.
So the Shavakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, the heroes and solitary realizers, they strive for their own individual liberation, and if they achieve their goal and become an arhat or a foe destroyer, then they are liberated from samsara. But they are arhats, they are not Buddhas. And the difference is, whilst they have abandoned the afflictions together with their seeds, the imprints or stains of the afflictions remain. So attaining the state of bliss, of being an arhat, they are free from samsara. Amongst them, many will remain in meditative bliss for a lengthy period of time. They've achieved their goal and now they're abiding in their bliss. Some will more quickly realize that they have there's more to be done. Whilst they are free from suffering, others are not. And therefore, some will comparatively, comparing to the other arhats, generate bodhicitta and enter the Mahayana paths relatively quickly. And here the relative is compared to their fellow Theravada arhats, the fellow Shavaka and Pratyeka Buddha arhats. Many of them, though, will bliss out for a long time, and eventually they'll be ready to be reminded by the Buddhas there's more to be done. Beings are suffering, they need guidance, and you actually haven't finished the path. You've done incredibly well, but the stains of the imprints are there. You've abandoned the seeds of the imprints, but the stains are still there. You may be free from samsara, but you're not yet a Buddha. And then they too will come back and struggle, but eventually will enter the Mahayana paths, the paths of the Bodhisattva.
And there this young then you get Yendu Dutch about Tosa, that the day on the Yendu Jolambo Tolam Toy, Yendu Dutch about Dambo Toy, Subudi, answer the Super Jipan, the Jipare, Yama Len Pansi because of the Chata River, you can super chatter or judgment of Tamoto. Denegi judgment by the Mashiwache, Setaralia, Jesusum Yamnachi has you go there. This Chitrayor. Judgment by the Mashiwache, and this Jamnisi Yamnachi, Jesusum Yamnachi to Hanjigungore. The San Yoko Toya, those tiny Chakoro. Diantic judgment by Yandu judgment, then the top side, then a Gomuso, the Subudipa, yes, and Yama Lenin Panship, Subudipa, Super Rapa de Pashine, then Yigi Rashi Lucia, the Lucy can get Kiwachilingor, the Zugere, that the Lucille called Zugere. Says a deal Ludi like Lenin on Juma Mareta Ludi, Molan the Kawapashilet in the Jumare. The nigger judgment by that, Hame Pasi or this. That Unibu Yambashaj, that could take issue, Lulia, assembly, new more Chasapansa, the nigger Unibu Yambashaj to go regere. So that there's a Sanjigi in Jingila, they were sure called the Yamshatilla, so George in there, and Sanjigi, that you know, and that the Tarba top Sare, the new Yomo, Jiva Chasapansa, your Marda, by a Laduyore, Kurong Tobia Chasan top Sayama, the new Tobiagi, Laduyores and Sunjin Dinico, and judges in Yamajine. Yadugure, Tanganjuki, Dishedadi, that the Manzuke, Semzambada, Kashimbatigo, Umabatiki, Higore, but meaning Necherama wala so we get Taman Bacherama was a Tamil Hamig, Yadi, Tachum, Hame, Topsana, the Nesang Jajusim Yamnajioma, Sangia or Yoma, Cabarriota.
To bring a little bit more detailed because there are differing presentations. The Buddha did teach differing presentations. So within the different philosophical tenets, there are different presentations here. So first to present very clearly or in a bit more detail from the presentation of the tenets of the Chittamatrans and the Madhyamakas, the mind-only school and the middle way schools. So they say that some Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, when they attain liberation, when they become an arhat, they will do so. When they attain liberation, they will do so in a body similar to ours, comprised of flesh and blood. But before they die, now as an arhat, in this body of flesh and blood, they develop the determination, I need to become a bodhisattva. And I will do so in this life. And then they strive and enter the Mahayana paths. So these are the ones who will become a Buddha much more quickly than the far larger group who, when they become an arhat in this body of flesh and blood, they then die. And this body of flesh and blood, of course, is lost, this body, because it's no different from ours. Then they immediately take rebirth in what's called a mental body. So it's a body that's not comprised of flesh and blood, but just of consciousness. It comes about independent on different causes than our own body comes about on, because they are arhats. They attain their mental body independence on virtue and prayer. So they've had, in terms of prayer, the aspiration to become arhats for a very long time and created tremendous merit, and now that goal is achieved. They're an arhat. And they now abide in this blissful state in a mental body for an extensive period of time. And this is then the majority of arhats. And they then eventually are ready for the Buddhas to interact with them by means of light rays, and in this way to remind them that liberation is possible. That you have already attained liberation, but you still have enlightenment to achieve. Those stains of the afflictions are still there. Then they start out on the Bodhisattva path. So again, this is the presentation that the Buddha taught in the Chittamatrana and Madhyamaka schools. Though the other two schools, the Vaibhashika, the Great Exposition School, and the Sutra School, the Sautrantika, their presentation is different. They will state that when the arhat dies, their continuum ceases. And that's the end of the story. There is no possibility for Buddhahood. So their presentation, again, it's taught by the Buddha in the Vaibhashika and Sautrantika schools, is quite different.
Yeah.
Thank you.